welcome to episode 47 of Pushing Cardboard, recorded in July 2025. I'm Grant Lindenberg, and I'm trying to get this episode out under tricky circumstances. We have temporarily moved out of the main floors of our house while some renovation work is being done. My podcasting bunker is in the basement, so that's where I am, hoping to record this while the work seems temporarily quiet. Another interview this month. I spoke with Andoni Orive, co-designer along with Igor Plaza of VUCA's recent game, New Cold War. Very interesting game that takes up where Twilight Struggle leaves off, though in this game there's 4 players. And as well, I'll take a look at Beware the Ides of March by John Thiessen, published by Hollenspiel. It's a hex encounter game pitting the triumvirate of Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus on one side, facing Cassius and Brutus, representing the Republic on the other. And then, of course, there'll be news and chit-chat from the history board gaming world. I'll take a moment to say this episode is sponsored by Cube4Me. Cube4Me has quickly established themselves as the premier provider of storage solutions for historical board games. We're talking counter trays and card boxes. One of the best things about their trays is they come not just in a variety of figurations, 4 pockets by 5, 4 by 3, etc., but also a variety of depths. And one tray can serve as the lid for the next if you're looking to save space and eliminate box lid lift. Check out my website or the newsletter for my link. You use it to order their trays, they'll know I sent you, and not only that, you'll get 5% off your order. Really, you can't afford not to try them. News. It seems like we're starting too many of these news segments with obituary notices, but here's one more. Alfred Leonardi has died. He was the designer of the legendary Ace of Aces air combat game, where there was no map or counters, just 2 flip books. He also designed Bounty Hunter, taking the system to the Old West, and Lost Worlds, a fantasy role-playing series that I don't know anything about, but I loved Ace of Aces. The legendary Ace of Aces game is just about to come back into print after a successful Kickstarter, making the timing of his passing particularly sad. Dana Lombardi's game NORAD is a representation of a hypothetical nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union in 1962. Originally published in 1973 in Conflict magazine, it was republished in 1977 by Mishler Company, and then again in 2024 by Bonsai Games in Japan. And now you can own the latest edition, as the new version is available in North America. Details, as with many things mentioned today, are on the website and in the newsletter. Old School Tactical Volume 5 has just launched on Kickstarter. This box is set in France, 1940, with an optional add-on of Polish units and scenarios. I gotta say, when we did the World War II tactical game roundup on YouTube, lots of you mentioned OST as your favorite, so I imagine this is going to sell very well. Speaking of Volume 5s, Formsquare, the fairly new company from England, have announced the 5th volume of their Limits of Glory series, Donning the Sacred Heart. Set in the Civil War in the Vendée in the middle of the French Revolution, this is a return to a full-size game after their recent 2 smaller games in a 1-box release. You might mention, I think I talked on them before, they did the game Bonaparte's Eastern Empire about the campaign in Egypt. Another new release. From Bellica 3G comes An Impossible War, set in the First Carlist War, 1834 to 1838. Maybe this is a chance for you to learn a bit of Spanish history like I do. It's a card-assisted blog game, so check it out. And then, finally, Gettysburg, The First Day, is now available from Revolution Games, who also have a sale on at the moment. This is the latest volume from Master Blind Swords designer Steve Carey. I can't wait to see it. Speaking of Revolution Games, here's news that many of you may be pleased to hear. Eric Lee Smith is republishing his classic game, The Civil War 1861 to 65, with Revolution. This was a true classic from Victory Games in 1983, and now it's going to get all new components, as well as some rules cleanups and tweaks to flesh out any problems found in the past 40 years. Armchair Dragoons have set the date for this year's Fall Assembly in Cary, North Carolina. If you're lucky enough to be out that way, it's the 10th to 12th of October 2025. And finally, there's been a GMT newsletter. This has already been a long enough news segment, so just a few highlights. The main news for me was the international shipping fix is now in place, and some games are shipping. Barbarossa, Army Group North, 2nd edition is finally coming. A bunch of stuff for Space Empires, and then a 3rd printing of Talon. New on P500, there's a couple of things that aren't my thing, but maybe they'll be yours. There's something called Arc 500, looks kind of sci-fi. and then How the West Was Won, set in the Gunslinger era. So, there you go. What's on the table? I've been messing around with 1916 Verdun Campaign of Attrition from Ray Weiss and Conflict Simulations Limited. It was their first release, apparently. I didn't know. My local game store brought in a few of their games, and this is the one that caught my eye, so I bought it to check them out. It's a fairly straightforward hex and counter game. What gives it its twist is both sides are given a bunch of nondescript points at the beginning of the game and a set amount each turn. I say nondescript because they can be used for a variety of things, but the biggest two is you'll need them to launch offensive, but they can also be spent to offset step losses. So in these two main uses, they aren't so nondescript after all. We're talking about bodies, hence the attrition in the name. I'm not totally sure about this one so far. That mechanic is interesting, but the victory conditions are simply related to casualties. I suppose thematically that makes sense, but when it's a case of how can I kill more of the other guy's units than he kills of mine with no other objective, it may make a point about the uselessness of battle, but I don't know, for me it doesn't make for an interesting game. This episode is also sponsored by Noble Knight Games. If there's an out-of-print game you're looking for, they're your best chance. If you're looking for used games to avoid the new and shrink price, they've got thousands. And if you're looking to sell games, they're your best choice as well. Check out the link in the show notes, the newsletter, the website. Use it to get to their store. They'll know I sent you, and I'll get a little kickback. I'll spend it on games. I'll tell you about them, and then you'll head out to buy more games. It's a virtuous circle. New games to the collection. Another light month here. Undaunted 2200 Callisto. I'm a big fan of Undaunted, and I didn't buy this when it first came out, and then sort of regretted it. And it came up in a math trade, and I managed to trade my copy of Hands in the Sea for it. So that was great. And then the only other thing that came out, I got my latest package from Vevictus, and this is one of those ones that has the regular magazine and magazine game, and then a bonus game. So one is called Hamilcar Imperator, La Guerre de Mercenaires, and the other one is Sadawa 1866. I know nothing about either one, but I look forward to it. I've always liked the Vevictus stuff. Anyway, it was good that I didn't spend too much on games. Gotta save up to pay for the renovation. Okay, let's take a look at Beware the Ides of March from Hollandspiel, designed by John Thiessen. Set just after the assassination of Julius Caesar, we have a triumvirate of Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. Well, really just Octavian and Antony, as Lepidus does nothing. He holds one area, he never moves. And then on the other side are the Liberators, Brutus and Cassius. And then there's a few minor factions that can pop up and spoil your plans as well. The map is hex and counter, but the hexes are very large. You'll enjoy it. It centers on the Mediterranean, with Antioch in the east and the Iberian Peninsula in the west. We're fairly zoomed out. Italy, for example, is just 8 hexes with another 4 at the top for Cisalpina. The terrain is either clear mountains or rough, so not too much to keep track of there. The seas are in play as well, with shallower coastal hexes, a lighter blue than the deep water hexes. Only transports can cross those deep ones, but they have to leave their escorting squadrons behind. The counters are the usual laser-cut thick pieces we expect from Hollandspiel and their manufacturer, Blue Panther. There are leaders, or leader units for the 4 leaders. No counter for the static Lepidus. Each side has a couple of transports, 3 squadrons, and each side starts with just a handful of troops. Part of what makes the game interesting is there are not a ton of reinforcements coming, 3 more units per side. Eliminated units can be rebuilt, a maximum of 1 per turn if you roll well, but the counter mix is the absolute limit for what's going to be on the board, and it's not much. That means that if you can get even a small advantage in units, you might be able to make that advantage snowball. And the converse is true. If you get behind, you really need to avoid battle until you can get your troops back up to strength. Of course, this is mitigated by the fact that you may well have your armies divided into 2 or more separate forces, so you may have an advantage in one area but be disadvantaged in another. The entire map is divided into provinces, 12 of them labeled as key and the rest as neutral. The big distinction here is that key provinces are always belong to one side or the other, and they don't need to be garrisoned for you to retain control, whereas the neutral provinces are only controlled when occupied by one side and not the other. Unoccupied or contested, they remain neutral. The other main feature of this game is the prestige track. You lose prestige every time you lose a unit or leader, and then the only way to gain prestige is to clearly win a battle. Some battles end with one side retreating but no real victor, so if you think about it, you realize you may be more likely to lose prestige more often than you gain it. Which brings us to the victory conditions. The game immediately ends if one side hits 0 prestige, and the other side simply wins. If that doesn't happen and the game does go the distance, your score is your remaining prestige score plus 1 point for every province you control, and an extra point if you control the city of Rome. This leads to the two sides both being very wary of engaging in battle. This aligns well with history, as well. There were only 2 or 3 major battles in the 4 years depicted. Of course, if your opponent is scooping up neutral provinces and holds a lead over you, you're going to be forced to go to battle. Kind of a difficult task. But there are a few things that can shake up the balance of power, random things really, even just in tiny areas of the board, and they can give you an opportunity to attack. There's 4 minor powers, 2 that might invade, and 2 other that start on the board but may be provoked into taking sides. Each year is 6 turns long, with 1 turn being winter and turn 1 being winter and turn 4 being summer. And in those winter and summer turns, you have to check for attrition in any hex that has 3 or more units. That might suddenly give you an opening. There's also random storms that can sink ships, and a handful of units that can go to either side as reinforcements, depending on who rows well enough first. I should note, there's plenty of snowball effects in this game, and the reinforcements is one of them. The more provinces you control, the more likely you are to get reinforcements. By snowball, I mean that once you have the lead, you gain advantages that make it easier for you to hold on or increase said lead. Another such snowball rule comes into play if one player's prestige is at least 5 levels higher than their opponent's. The higher player can roll for a defection attempt. They can try to sway control of a key province or target a hex and try to get an enemy unit to defect. Movement is straightforward. Troops have 3 movement points, leaders 6, transports 4, and squadrons 5. Most hexes cost 1 movement point to enter. There's a few mountain hex sides that cost 1.5 to cross. That's about it. Combat is odds-based, and there are separate CRTs for land and naval battles. If you have a leader and the other side doesn't, you're going to get a column shift. The key thing here is the defender is allowed to try retreat before combat if they wish, and they'll have a 66% chance of doing so. Of course, they're going to need somewhere to retreat to, so if you're in that situation, don't get yourself backed into a corner. The results are a percentage of troops lost, with or without a retreat, or total elimination. In the center columns of the CRT, 1 to 2, 1 to 1, or 2 to 1, there's also a few results where both sides roll again on a special table to see their percentage lost. This table favors neither side, so it can really generate some lopsided results in either direction. To count as a win, you need to have eliminated the other side or made them retreat after losing at least 1 unit. So there can be a fair number of smaller battles where no side is declared the winner and no prestige won. There's fairly straightforward rules about supply, and each side also has a single supply counter that they can drag around to temporarily get themselves out of a supply problem. Being out of supply hurts when checking for attrition in summer or winter, or when facing defection attempts. Anyway, that's the mechanics. What does it all add up to? I've played 3 times so far, all solo, so this may go out the window once I get to play properly opposed. I found it a bit chess-like, really, in that both sides are very cagey, wary of making that first big attack. In the meantime, they see which neutral provinces they can add. This is tricky, as you'll either have to march all the way, sometimes halfway around the Mediterranean, or use your transports. But there's a wrinkle here as well. You only have 2 transports, and each transport can only carry a single unit. So there's no sailing a large force over open seas. The other tricky thing is to maintain control of a neutral province, you have to leave a unit there. And both sides only have 10 units. So each time you leave a garrison behind, you've weakened your main force by 10%, I suppose. Both sides control 6 key provinces at start, but the triumvirate also control the bonus city, Rome, so they start marginally ahead. Theoretically, that puts the onus on the Republic player. I should also mention that the triumvirate units all have either an A for Anthony or O for Octavian on them. When coming in as a reinforcement or a rebuilt unit, they can only be placed in areas controlled by their designated leader. After placement, I couldn't find a rule that said the 2 unit types couldn't be intermingled or led by the other leader, but when they're placed, they have to go just with their leader. Anyway, it's a small handicap for the triumvirate, but it may mess up your plans. I really like this game. The scarcity of units on a large map was what drew me in. When I first looked at the small orders of battle, the small countermix, I thought it was going to be a bit of a drag, but in fact, it's a key part of the tension. You can't wait and wait and wait and build your army. At some point, you're going to find yourself attacking at 2-to-1 odds, and the risk of the continued attack special reroll will have you on the edge of your seat. And look, even the 3-to-1 table has a 1/6 of a chance of that continued battle reroll. It's crazy. Anyway, once one side takes a loss, it's up to the other side to try to capitalize, and away we go. And then, of course, when trying to capitalize, you might suffer a bad loss, and the tables turn again. Well, the game definitely punishes mistakes and snowballs a bit for the leader. It's not impossible to come back from a bad position, just tough, which I think is how it should be. So check it out. Beware the Ides of March by Hollenspiel. If you want a closer look at the components, check out my YouTube channel. Okay, time for our interview. Today I'm speaking with Andoni Orive. He's the designer of New Cold War, which if you haven't seen, once again, check out my YouTube channel, have a look at the components. VUCA never fails in this regard. And you'll see the board and how it's in no way a copy of Twilight Struggle, but rather inspired by it. I only bring that up because, as you'll hear in our interview, there's lots of similarities, but rather more differences. Anyway, here's our chat. Okay, hello, folks. I'm speaking with Andoni Orive today. He's one of the co-designers of a new game, New Cold War. How are you, Andoni?
Fine. Thank you for inviting me to be there to talk about New Cold War. Very happy.
And this is a co-design. Your co-designer is Igor Plaza. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
So is this your first design?
Yeah, it's our first design. Yeah, we are really pretty new in this world as a player and obviously as a designers. We don't have a lot of experience.
Oh, okay. So newer players as well. You haven't been playing political or historical or war games for a long time?
No. When we start to show the game, I think 2 years ago in our first physical conventions in Spain, we have never played a war game. So, and right now I only make some approaches, but little, okay, because we spend a lot of time focusing the game, okay. So
did you have a history with playing like Euro style games, like Carcassonne and things like that?
We start with some Euro games, but not too much. I think maybe 10 years ago we start to play in a little group about Euro games, and only was that I like history because I have studied history, and I saw Twilight Struggle to Igor, and this was the first connection to start to make this game.
That's sort of amazing that you don't have a long history as a player and you're a first-time designer, and yet we'll talk a lot about the game later, but New Cold War, it's not some like simple first-time design. It's a big meaty game with lots going on.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes when I have talked with people more experienced in this world, say that maybe this fresh mind could be a benefit for design the game, because we are not influenced or by other mechanics, because we don't know them.
Right.
Our game inspired in Twilight Struggle, but with some mechanics created by us. Okay, not copied from a lot of games because we haven't played them.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. You're coming at the whole thing with kind of fresh eyes. If Twilight Struggle's the only thing you've really played that influences it. And I mean, of course, what New Cold War is like Twilight Struggle in that it's an area influence type game, but it sort of picks up right when Twilight Struggle ends. Right, it starts at the end of the Cold War and comes all the way to basically COVID time.
Yeah. I think this is one of the main reasons for decide to design this game. Well, at the beginning, it was only like a friend told that we need to do something to continue with Twilight Struggle in the historical context, okay? Because we play sometimes, but not too much. Maybe I play with Igor, I don't know, 10 times to Twilight Struggle, not more. But we try to find something that continues Twilight Struggle, and in like 6 years ago we didn't find nothing, okay, nothing similar. So at the beginning we decide to create like a copy of Twilight Struggle, but with this new context and with the new events, okay. So we did this at the beginning, and after that we say we need to make our own game, not only a copy, okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, to me, the similarities are only that you're attempting to influence areas, so that's it, and that it's a card-driven game. But other than that, you've got a ton of mechanisms and methods of play that are not in Twilight Struggle. If somebody looked at the board, they wouldn't instantly think that this was a follow-on to your board. Looks very different. It has the map, but it has a lot more other things going on as well.
Yeah, when we started, the map looks similar because it's like a world map classic, but at the end, the original design was one of our friends. Is a designer, okay, not of war games or board games, but give us this idea to place the card in the center of the board and break them up. Because before, when we play the card, we play outside the board. So your opponent that is in the opposite corner don't see well your event. Is what are you playing? I can see. And with this decision to put the events in the center, I like it too much.
I like it too, especially because one of the other big differences from Twilight Struggle is your game's a 4-player game. We have it's 2 versus 2, sort of, but then it becomes every player for themselves in the end, right? It's we have the Soviets and the Chinese on one side, and the Europeans and the Americans on the other. But it's sort of like your side has to win, and then you're also trying to beat the other person that's on your side.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things of the game that the most people love it, because it's like as you said, this half of the game, this cooperation with your ally. So you have to talk, you have to tell, help me here, play in the media track, let's go together. But after that, you start to make some betrays. And so this is I think it's a really fun game for when you play 4. That is honestly the best way to play New Cold War, because the game is for 1 to 4, but it has been created for 4 people. Okay. After that, we have development some bots, but and people love that this semi-cooperative but competitive at the end.
Well, yeah, because it's got that feeling. It's not competitive right from the get-go. Like, you really do have to cooperate for probably 2/3 of the game. But you get into the last third or the last quarter, and then it's like everything changes. I mean, there's a thing in your game even where each turn the two red players and the two blue players, they each swap a card. You take a card that might help your partner, and they do the same for you.
Yeah.
In the end game, you can give them a crappy card.
Yeah. You start with this maybe cooperation or not, because in the game you have this some hidden mechanics to exchange card. Maybe your ally thinks that you are helping them, and maybe you are not doing this. Okay, so yeah. I'm really happy with this this part of the game, of this 2 versus 2, and all against others. Okay, and for example, when two allies start to fight against the other since the beginning, could be dangerous, because sometimes they start to struggle together, and the other block can go forward. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the game, like Twilight Struggle, there's regions you're trying to control that are they're roughly like continents in a way, just roughly. But you've divided them also. You've got these special things that are sub-regions that you get these bonuses for if you can get, like, they have like 4 or 5 pieces or countries in a smaller part of a bigger region. Where did that come from? That's a really interesting mechanic.
Okay, I think when we started, we create the objectives. Okay, that is the way to win by automatically. Okay, and can guide the player in the game. So new players, they receive the objectives, so you have a guide to how to play, for example. Okay, but after that, the game is more deep, I think, because you can start controlling, for example, South America, and you don't have objectives there. You are only assuring a lot of points and trying your rivals to think that you have interest there. Okay, and when we create the objectives, we start to think in a smaller objectives. Okay, and when we are thinking about this, we place on the board these sub-regions, because at the beginning it's like how you make a little objective in the game, not like primary or secondary. Okay, but at the end we decide that it fits well in the game. For example, in Africa, to control Sahel, Horn of Africa, Maghreb, because there are some geopolitical particularities in each region. So I think this mechanic goes very well with the essence of the game.
Right, it gives some bluffing. I should describe it. The game, there's a big victory point track, and if the game goes the whole 9 turns, victory points is how it's determined. But these objective cards that you're talking about, at the beginning of the game, each player gets 3 and discards 1, so they have 2 objectives, and they might say, like, control one of these sub-regions, right? And then halfway through the game, you get a third one. And if you can win automatically if you can accomplish 2 of your 3 objectives. That's like the quick auto victory, but very difficult.
Yeah. Normally, I think the 66% of the games with experienced player or people who have played, I don't know, 3-4 times, ends up in the final turn.
Right.
You have like a 33% that you can win by these objectives. I think that the objectives is something that reminds you to risk game. So this you have to control Middle East and South America. Okay, for example, the objectives are not only affects regions, can affect the prestige track, the media track, control your orbit countries that are your aligned countries in the game. So yeah, I think in this game, in difference with Twilight Struggle, we don't have car points. Okay,
Right.
The score is always in the same term of its decade. So I
Right.
think
There's not
the objectives
there's
is
not those scoring cards.
the objectives is the different variable of every game, because every power has 8 objectives and play with 3.
Right. Right.
The objectives logically are cross between the powers to guarantee that you are going to have a struggle with other powers. So this is good because every game could be different, because you use only 12 objectives of 32 and all different. So yeah, it's a mechanic that we like it too.
Well, I'll describe a little bit more of the game so people can get an idea of how this is going to work. There's there's a turn track on the board. There's 9 turns in the game, divided into 3 decades: 3 turns in the first, 3 turns in the second, 3 turns in the third decade. So you have basically 27 rounds, because there's 3 cards for each of those, three cards played each of those rounds. And that turn track also tells you when there's scoring rounds, which is basically at the end of each decade, right?
Yeah.
And then it also tells you when to adjust prestige points or the media track and things like that, which we'll talk to. We've talked about the objective cards, and the victory points is pretty straightforward. What about that prestige track? That's something that's very different from that. That's your own thing as well.
Okay, yeah. I think that both tracks, prestige and media, are quite different in the game. The prestige is an individual track. Okay, every power has a token in this track, and it serves us to determine the initial setup of the game. Okay, 1999, fall of the Berlin Wall. Russia starts very bad in the prestige track, and US start very good, and China and European Union start like normal. Okay, so this is important to fix this difference between a strong US and a weak Russia at the beginning of the game. Okay, and in the prestige track we try to reflect there a lot of events in the game that can affect this prestige in terms of international and national support to the power. Okay, and for example, the media is totally different because you play by blocks, blue against the red. So you can play alone in this track, or you can play cooperating with your ally. And the good thing of the media is that when you have a prestige track, prestige check is influenced by the media.
Right.
When you have a scoring phase in the board, controlling regions, countries, is influenced by the media. So media is something important, and that is the main, I think, a struggle between the blocks, because they need to move to his side every power. Okay.
The prestige track is sort of like world opinion, whereas the media is more of like how you're influencing the opinion, or the media opinion.
No, I think that the media is more the support of the the TV channels, newspapers, the public opinion, okay, and the prestige is more like, for example, I don't know, for example, when European Union signed the Maastricht Treaty, that is, I think, the modern start of the European Union, is like he increased the prestige of the power. Okay,
right. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
for example, with when I don't know, when something, for example, in the opposite, when Brexit arrives, this is the opposite. This harms the prestige of the European Union. Okay.
Right. Totally makes sense. Does the prestige track also influence scoring when the scoring rounds happen?
The prestige, no, because you score the prestige in turns 2, 5, and 8, and when you score the prestige, this is influenced by the media, and when we score the board in at the end of each decade, it's influenced by the media. Is the media is the this media support who change all the checks in the game, prestige and scoring.
Right. So one way the game's like Twilight Struggle is it's a card driven game, and the cards are have events and operation points on them. So it's that classic thing. And also the each of the cards is either it's allied to one of the 4 powers, or else it's a neutral card. So if you're the US and you have a US event card, you have to choose between the events or the ops. But if you're playing somebody else's card, if I'm the US and I'm playing a Russian card, I can only play the ops, but the Russian player still gets to play the event. Yeah, it's that kind of that thing where you can't bury somebody else's good events.
Yeah, this is I think it's a classical approach to a card-driven game with some little differences. For example, here we have crisis cards and negative cards.
Yes, okay. and war cards. Yeah,
I think that this is not as usual. I don't know, because as I have told at the beginning, I don't know a lot of games. So, but for example, I have played some of them, and negative cards, I think is not too common. Yeah.
I don't think it's common either. The thing that I think is that comes closest to those is there's some games that have where the event is a must play. You draw that card and you have no choice. You have to play it. And the negative cards and the crisis cards have a bit of that flavor. Like it's like I can't get out of this.
Yeah, crisis card, yes, because you have to play for sure. But the negative in this case is the different, because when you play a negative card, you always play the points and the event is triggered, okay? Because no one will choose a negative event instead of play points. So this right. And the other difference, I think, is, for example, in this game, if you receive, for example, a card of US, if you decide to play by points, the event is removed from the game.
Yes, right.
It's not like I play points because later the card will return, as in Twilight Struggle. No, in this case, we have 135 cards. So, we decide that you have to choose points or event. And if you don't want to play the event, you lose for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it feels like there's enough cards in this game that being somebody who really studies the deck and knows all the cards doesn't give you the same kind of an advantage that a game like Twilight Struggle doesn't have such a large deck, and knowing that deck can give you a real advantage. I don't feel like you have the same advantage here by knowing the deck.
Yeah, as in all the card driven games, it's important to know the events. But as you said, I think this game is not as fixed in certain way to Twilight Struggle, because in Twilight Struggle is like I start with a coup in Iran. I have to coup again. It's more like a boxing combat.
Yeah,
In this game, there are 4 players. So, and the deck is different, I think, in every game, because when you finish the game, there is like 50 or 45 cards that you didn't use in this game. So it's not like that in turn 3 is going to be again a card point or something like this. It's more open. Maybe with the difference that the first decade, for example, in this game is more fixed, because you are going to play almost all the deck in the first decade, except I think 3 cards.
It's a smaller deck than the second and third, right?
Yeah, and there are some cards, for example, for historical purpose, that come back to the game again and again. Okay,
Right.
For example, the Tibetan conflict is a negative card from China. As this conflict is still active these days, it's logical that the card can appear 2 or 3 times, maybe, or only 1, depends of the deck, in the game. And the unique cards, for example, I don't know, Putin, for example, appears 1 time. But this with historical facts that are repeating or comes back again.
Well, it also makes sense that because it's 4 players, it's not the deck knowledge works much differently there too, because you don't if in a game where there's just two people, I know what cards I have, and if I know the deck really well, I have an idea of what you might have. But with 4 players, the cards that I wish I had, maybe my partner has it, I don't know, or maybe my opponents have it. So it's much more. There's more chaos in terms of the knowledge there.
Yeah, and I think that this provides different strategies. For example, the power that is normally in 4th place, this player plays totally different. It's like, leave me alone. I will play my strategy. I don't fight against US, because in this game we have a rule, a mention that there is US preponderance in the game, like superiority, because they start very good, as I told you with the prestige track, okay? And the first deck is very favorable to US, okay? And this try to reflect the geopolitical reality of these 30 years, that US almost dominate all of these years. Maybe the last 4 or 5 years of the game, China can start to contest this US superiority. So we try to reflect this. For this reason, the first decade is US, very good for US, very bad for China and Russia, because, for example, Russia start bad, but in 1991 goes worst, okay? So this happens, and after that, in second decade, third decade, for example, China in third decade is very, very strong, trying to reflect this final growth of China. So I think that the game is some fix in several things, but with this historical background or purpose, okay?
That 4-player thing also, just in the way that the game plays, it's like each turn is divided into the 3 rounds, because you have each player has 4 cards, gets rid of 1, so has 3 cards. They each play their card each round down in the middle of the board, like you said, and then you turn it up, and the events will go before the ops, and the higher value events will go first. The higher value ops will go first. But that makes it completely chaotic too, in terms of who's going to go before who. There's no thought of like I'm going to do this so that I go before you. There's way more to it.
Yeah, I think that in the first version of the game, this doesn't happen. But after that, we decide to create this mechanism, and we are very happy with this because you have a strategy before place the card, because you have to decide if you are going to play first or last. And sometimes this is really important in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you want to jump on a place, and so you want to go first, but sometimes you want to play defensively, so you want to go last so you can clean up whatever mess somebody might have made.
And you have like surprises with this, because you think that you play a 3 ops card and you say, I'm going to play first. But for example, another player play a 4 points and goes first and decide to do the same that you are thinking, or some events could surprise or change this strategy. So I like that the 27 rounds don't have a fixed order. It's like a surprise.
Every time it's a surprise. So the you're playing the ops or the events. The main thing you're doing is you're placing or removing control, right? That's sort of the standard thing. And the different countries, they can be either like a regional power, a geostrategically important power, or a non sort of geostrategic. And the regional powers take more to influence than it's 3, 2, and 1 in terms of how much it costs to place that influence.
In this game, we have like three kinds of countries instead of the classic or battleground, non-battleground. Okay, like in Twilight Struggle, right. We want to give like this importance, for example, to countries as India or Japan, that is not like standard countries. Okay, for example, sometimes we think maybe a 5th player with India could enter in the game or in a future expansion, for example. Sometimes people say that this, but okay, for us was complicated to make a China research to create all the events, because we are we are Westerns or Western people, so we know well US history, European Union history, Russia, but for China I think was more complicated, and for India I think it's a big I don't know, challenge.
It's also you needed that 4 that could be roughly balanced, and it feels like India is like it's rising, but it's not at the same power as the other 4 yet. So I don't know, maybe in the future India will be at the same level. Who knows? You can maybe in the game you can control, but you also regions also have a stability rating as well, and you can influence the stability, which makes it easier or harder to flip them, to flip the control, right?
Yeah, as you say, the more typical movement is place or remove influence or control. Okay, but when you play more times, you be aware that the stability tokens are really, really important because, for example, there are some key countries in the regions, for example, with one stability. Stability goes from 1 to 4, okay? And this reflects the number of ops that you need to control the country. For example, to control, and you have the orbit countries that they have 2 levels of stability. For
Depending on
example,
which side, right? Yeah.
Japan is US orbit. So the blue need 3 ops, the reds need 4 ops. Okay.
Right. Meaning that the more stable the country is, the harder it is to influence it.
So, for example, it's very, very hard to remove US from Japan or remove European Union for Poland, for example.
Right.
So the key countries normally are the one with the lowest stability, but they are like geopolitical countries, geostrategic. Right. Okay, sorry. For example, in Middle East you have Iraq. Iraq is like Russia has Iran, US has Israel, the Gulf states, Russia has Syria, Lebanon. So Iraq is the key country. So if you can protect Iraq with one of these stability markers, is really important. Okay. Or same happens, for example, in Asia with Bangladesh, or in South America with unstable countries as Bolivia or Ecuador. Okay, right. Because it's the countries where the other player can make coups. Okay, to inverse the control of these countries.
Right. To be clear about that, in your game, you can if there's like 2 shifts, you can go from blue. A country can be just neutral, or it can be on the blue side or the red side. And if it's on, say, if it's on the red side, the blue player could influence it back to neutral. But if it's red and the blue player shifts it enough, plays enough to shift it all the way to red, that's a coup, and that's a complete shift. Yeah. And there's a limit on how many of those each player can do each turn as well, right?
Yeah. The coup is like, you control one country and your rival moves to his control. So make these 2 shifts, okay? And we have limited the coups relation in relation with the media track, okay? If you make a lot of coups, you have a penalty in the media, like it's logical, okay?
Right. Yes. Yeah, there's a penalty.
And we have made a little reward for the coups in order to offer the players more opportunities to struggle between the others. Okay, because I think, I don't know, maybe it's the way of playing in different countries. Okay, because I'm seeing people writing in BGG, for example, and I think that, for example, in Spain we fight together. One power against the other is like the essence of the game is this disputes constant, okay? And in other countries, I don't know, maybe I think that they play more, every player goes in the strategy, and for this reason there are people saying that US gains almost always and China can win. And for us, this is not true, because US is true, but this is something look for that can win more times if they don't fight against US. But China, for example, in a long-term game, can win for sure. Okay, so.
Yeah, the game. I mean, you even write in the designer's notes that the game favors the U.S. in a certain way, but in a 4-player game, it's up to the other 3 players to nullify that advantage a little bit. The onus is on the other players to keep their eye on the U.S. right from the get-go.
yeah, the game is a little unbalanced in favor of US, but as you say, in a 4-player game, the game is going to be balanced for the rest of the players, because if the 2 and 3rd player start to fight against US, really in 1-2 turns, the game is open again. So
Puts a
instead
lot
of
of pressure.
yeah, in a
Puts a lot of
2-player
pressure
game,
on the European player to balance the cooperation and the competitive. If you're playing Europe, you're in a tight spot.
yeah, because for example, sometimes situation is US is winning and European Union is in 2nd place. So the cooperation between these blue powers starts to go weak, and the red powers collaborate good together. So at the end, I think game is open, and you have this advantage that, for example, in a 2-player games, if it's unbalanced, it's complicated to. But with 4 people, as I told you, the 4-player is can do his strategy. They don't have a lot of fights against the others. The first player has to fight against the second and the third. So at the end, the game, I think, is balanced. Okay.
Yeah. Multiplayer games are more self-balancing just by the fact that there's more players. So I haven't felt that. It's going back to that thing about the stability, and you were talking about the coups. I think like the great play is if you can do a coup, switch it, and then increase its stability to make it harder for the opponent to switch it back. Then that's like that. That's the golden move.
Yeah, we have an interesting rule that is that you can stabilize or destabilize a country in the same movement that you control or remove the influence. Okay, so you have to take control of one country, and after that, for example, if you want to stabilize, it's really important the order of play, because, for example, you think I'm going to stabilize first and protect this, for example, Brazil, that is a regional power with 2 stability. So it's a really, very good country to be there. And so this is the important. If the other player starts, maybe they destabilize the country before you can protect. So this is the strategy that we have told before, okay, with the order of play.
The other sort of big mechanic I think of in this game is the vetoes. Each player has 3 vetoes that they can use at some point, which means like if you play an event that I really hate, I can play one of my vetoes and that event doesn't happen. There, with a few exceptions, there's certain things that can't be vetoed, but each player also has a limit to how many vetoes they can play, right?
You can veto any card except the 4 ops, that there is only 5 in the game, and the crisis card that has zero ops, that is 5 in the game. You can veto the other 125 events, but only 3 for European Union and China in all the game, a maximum 1 per turn, and 4 vetoes for US and Russia, because they have an extra veto in the first decade that try to reflect this superiority from the original Cold War powers against the new China, European Union. In the first decade are in internal consolidation. Okay, and this remind me another important thing in the game, that US and Russia can play in all the board since the beginning. But China and European Union only can play in Asia and Southeast Asia for China, Europe and Africa for European Union.
Right. Yeah. Very restricted.
This asymmetrical characteristic is really important, because China and European Union need events to open other regions. They can suffer vetoes when they are trying to open in other regions. So this is interesting too.
The veto, I should also mention, it costs, if you can play a veto, but it also costs you victory points.
Yes.
So it's not something you do lightly.
It's I want to make this because this try to reflect the permanent seats of the United Nations Security Council, okay? Because China, Russia, US, France, and UK has the seats. So for us, we consider France and UK till Brexit part of European Union. So all of them has these permanent seats, and that's try to reflect that when you veto something, you have some consequences, and we call this the political cost. Okay.
And you only have so many per game as well. It's not like
You
got you do it you said.
It's
so
another very strategical option. Okay, because these games in a lot of times when you are going to win the game, is like, okay, in the next round I'm going to win, and another rival plays, for example, one of your negative events, and you lose, for example, one country, and you can win.
And you're not going to win, yeah.
For example, if you have this veto, there you say, okay, I'm going to win. But sometimes you veto too much at the beginning or in the middle of the game. And it's interesting that you can veto only one per turn. Because sometimes you place a negative event, for example, for China, and you want to veto this because you have a worst card for China in the second round. So China veto the first, and after that you play the second, and he can veto. So you have this strategy of give the carrot, and okay, he take it, and after that, okay, you play the good card. Okay,
the good card. Yeah. Well, so we've sort of described how it all goes. There's like we said, 9 rounds, 3 cards per round. After every 3 turns, there's a scoring round, which will bring the victory points up, and so that's basically it. If it goes the full 9 turns, then it's the highest victory points wins. But there's those objective cards that we talked about that could provide an auto win. So we basically know how it works. It's for 4 players. You've got bots if you got less than 4. You even got special solo rules if you want to play just yourself and 3 bots. So it's pretty wide open in how you want to play it. The game's been out for a while now. What's the reception been like?
Okay, I think in Europe and in Spain it's going, I think, very well. I'm little surprised because in US it's not I think going as well as we expect. Okay, maybe I think it's because we are with Buka, that is a German publisher, and I suppose that they have more promotion, is more known in Europe, or maybe the promotion is not as much as necessary in US. But we are trying to do some actions now in US, trying to send more copies to bloggers or YouTubers, to try to give more visibility to the game. Because
I think in terms of European publishers, Buka's uh, definitely got maybe now the highest visibility of European publishers in the U.S. They've done really well. Especially, they've made the really smart idea of having a warehouse in the States, so that the shipping costs aren't as bad as some other games. You can get the games at a better price. That helps, but they're still European. They're not American, and it's a hard market to break into.
But I think that this because when some people ask you that you put our game in YouTube, in the comments, okay, you can see that some people don't know that Buka has a specific web for the US market,
right,
and has an warehouse, I think, in Texas.
Yeah.
And I think they don't know this, okay? Because a lot of people say, the shipping cost is huge. And no, you have to go to the US. I think that they have to spread this word more widely. And for example, other players, because now I'm trying to, in BGG, I'm trying to contact with US players to check why they think that game is not with marketing measures or actions. And I think the game is not in too much online stores. In the physical stores, they can find in some ones, but I'm giving this feedback to Buka with the help of these US gamers to try to go, because I think it's a game with possibilities to be well received, because it's a game for 4 players. You can play in 2 hours and a half, 3 hours. It's I think it's fun, it's interesting, you can learn history. So we are trying to make this pass in US.
I think it's like getting it into stores as well is a challenge, but it's happening. I'm in Canada, and VUCA games are like, there's a very good game store where I live, like really large, and they've started to carry some VUCA games, but it's hard for stores to be aware of all these smaller publishers, right? Because stores, it's a different owner in every city. It's not like it's not like their Walmart, where it's like a big corporation. It's like everybody's their own little thing. Yeah. So it's very hard to reach out to every store.
Yeah. For this reason, I think that this kind of conversation like today it's important to try to make more publicity about the game. Okay, I think that we go step by step, and I hope that US people can know this game, because I think they can like it, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a totally appealing game to the US in the same way that Twilight Struggle is. I think it's also, I mean, just to jump forward a little bit, it's also the timing of this game coming out. All of a sudden, this game, to me, it felt like historical rather than completely contemporary, because it feels like with this current administration in the States, they've totally changed the alignments. Like if you were going to do an expansion that went that picked up at COVID and went forward, the US and Europe aren't the friends that they used to be at the moment, at least. Things are very different now.
For this reason, we are not still working in expansion, but it's in our minds, because from 2019 to nowadays, there are tons of geopolitical events really important. You say this fight between US, European Union, the new powers as India, for example. Yeah, I think we have a lot of things to create an expansion, but okay, we are trying to at the beginning to to know the game. Okay, in US, for example, we have good news. Game is going to be published, I think, in South Korea, for example, with an publisher from there. They have some interest in China, but the government will never this happen because in our game you have this
You have Tiananmen Square. You have
Tiananmen, Tibet,
they don't want to talk about.
Uyghur conflict, human rights.
Uyghurs, Taiwan.
I know that Buka tries, but it's like no, this is impossible. But and I think they are trying to translate to to Italian, maybe to French. So okay, I expect my only little disappointment is this what happened with US, because for me I think that the game is going to go very well in US. I hope, because I think it's the larger community of board games or players in the world. Okay, so but maybe we need to push these actions.
I think I heard that Patrick from VUCA was going to try to come to some U.S. conventions this year, because convention season is just starting now, and I think that's where this game is going to sort of take off, is when people see it played at conventions. It looks great on the table. It's going to draw people in, because one great thing about having VUCA as your publisher is they're like the top of the heap in terms of component quality. Even right down to, I didn't even mention it, but each player in your game gets a little, like a player card on heavy cardboard, same like the mounted map thing that tells you like everything you can do, you have everything right on this little card that keeps your nose out of the rule book for the most part. So that it's right, like they didn't have to put that in, and you didn't have to put that in, but they'll pay the extra couple bucks and do it.
Yeah, you mentioned the conventions. This is one of the other actions that we are trying. So if anyone saw this conversation and is going to attend to a US con, we are trying to find some people to help a little bit, because I think that Buka went to these cons, I think last year, but not this year. Okay, so we are trying to find for some some fans of the game that can help to solve the game, and maybe offer him some some benefits with other Buka games, or so I launched this idea. If someone is interested, you can contact me in BGG, send me a private message, because we are trying to make any action to publicity the game in US.
I'll put that word out along when I post this on my podcast or on the YouTube channel as well, just because I'm sure there's. I'm not going to any conventions in the States this year because the border situation is strange things are happening at the border. But if you can, I got friends in the States that I can say, hey, you should play this game at the convention, and talk to Andoni. He'll hook you up.
I think it's important, and some comments in BGG from people who has really played sometimes, or 3, 4, 5 times, could help too, to give us this that we are all looking for. But we are really happy with the game, with the reception, because we are new designers. I think we have made a print run that is very good for new designers. So I'm happy. So Buka has published the first game in different language from English in Spanish. So this is something I think is good because it's first time for Buka, and I think it's first time that a foreign publisher edit one game in Spanish, one new game in Spanish. Okay, this is some different thing new in this world. So yeah, we are happy. But
on a side note, you're in Spain. Spain is really becoming a big place for publishing war games. There's a few publishers in Spain.
Yeah. And
must have a good hobby.
There is an important community. The conventions, we have a lot of conventions, and yeah, in Spain we have go for 2 years or 3 years to all the conventions important, and the game is well known and has a lot of success in the conventions because it's a game very, very good for a con because you can play in less than 3 hours. So it's funny. It's with 4 people.
I think you're right that it should do well in the States, and it may. I hope that this is just a matter of getting the sort of the snowball rolling down the hill. It needs to just pick up some momentum because I think this is the perfect game for conventions, and I think it's also a game that U.S. players are going to be they're going to love it the same way they love Twilight Struggle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, that was all my questions, Andoni. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we wrapped up?
No, I think we have made a good summary of the game. We have highlighted the more important mechanics. So, only thanks to you to invite me. It's very important for us this kind of conversations to arrive to the U.S. public and to explain the game. Okay, and let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Well, I'm not going to the States this year, but I'm going to a Canadian convention in November. I'll take it with me there.
Okay. Perfect.
But thank you for being.
For you. Okay. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thanks for being my guest. I'll talk to you after we wrap up here. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, man. Can you imagine designing a game with as much going on as this one as your first game? Blows my mind. Anyway, I should also mention, if you're a convention goer and interested in demoing the game, hit me up at grant@pushingcardboard.com. I'll put you in touch with Andoni. He'd love to see the game get more exposure in North America for sure. Parting shots. This business of being out of the house during the renovations is going to last a few months. So I apologize if I don't manage to keep up my regular schedule of podcasts or my volume of videos. I'll do my best given the twin challenges of it taking extra time to come and go and finding time when it's not noisy. The other tough thing that, at least for part of the time, I don't have access to all my game shelves. There's a bunch of stuff from the furnished room temporarily stacked in front of them. So most of GMT, Avalon Hill, Worthington, and Hollandspiel are behind a wall of boxes. Well, anyway, Mrs. Pushing Cardboard assures me it's all going to be worth it in the end. Okay, thanks as always to all the Pushing Cardboard supporters, whether it's by becoming a Ko-Fi patron or buying swag or whatever. And a special shout out to supporter Michael Sunboard, who increased his Ko-Fi level a couple of rungs this month. Much appreciated, Michael. In the newsletter and on the website are affiliate links for both Cube for Me and Noble Knight Games, yet another way to support the podcast if you're interested. And if you'd like to receive the newsletter, you can sign up at the website. There's one just for the podcast, which contains links to a bunch of the stuff discussed each episode. Another if you want to be notified of any special events. That one gets used much less often, but I'd recommend it. Wouldn't hurt. And then there's one that just is used to remind you of the live stream every 2 weeks. Last week, we talked about naval games. The week before that, we talked exclusively about World War II North Africa battle games. I got to say, it's been great fun getting to interact with the viewers in real time. So stop by if you can. There's info on the website and the YouTube channel about when they all happen. Or track me down on Discord or by email. I'll get you sorted out. Until then, roll low. At least if you're playing ASL.